The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back. It's a great Monday, and I know you're so excited to be up on a Monday after this weekend and so much that you had to do. The weather was great, and, it was like 98 degrees out there, and I don't know what I'm talking about. None of that is actually true at all whatsoever. It was cold and miserable outside. It's only 98 degrees inside my body, and this weekend was, it was very unusual, to tell you the truth. I learned a lot of lessons. You still can teach an old dog new tricks. My old buddy Rico, if you ever watch The Experts on Facebook Live and Twitter and YouTube, when I was actually broadcasting it in video form, old Rico, you could still teach him tricks even though he was an old dog. And interesting, this weekend started off Saturday, and last Thursday, it was actually Friday morning, I recorded episode 136. And it was a huge, I'm not going to go back through it completely. You can listen to episode 136, but it was a huge lesson for me. A lesson in knowing something, but it just hadn't washed over you yet. And how, people can have a tremendous amount of knowledge and understanding, but just it hasn't taken on a realistic form in their mind. And all this while, so many different things came to fruition this weekend. All this while, I've known for years. Listen, I remember back hosting for Sean Hannity in 2000, I believe it was 2015, maybe 2014, but definitely in 2015, and hosting for David Webb and Andrew Wilkow on SiriusXM Patriot Channel. And I remember talking about communism, and even had people call in, and we talk about the reality of the creep of communism. It was a creep then, right? It wasn't that long ago, folks. We're talking 5 years ago. It was a creep of communism. And I knew it. I felt it. Actually, leaving official service was what really woke me up to it, and it's funny because I talk to guys, men and women now that still work in the Bureau, and a lot of them don't get it. They don't get it. And I talk to a lot of people who are, former SEALs or former military, and a lot of them don't understand the reality of the predicament that we're in. And when I say they don't understand it, they get that it's communism. Especially the SEALs, they realize what's happening. Their eyes are pretty open for all this. But here's the thing. Even though my eyes were wide open and all this stuff, and I felt it and I knew it and I saw it, up until last week, it just hadn't washed over me completely that it is now. It's actually happened. I've talked to Drago, who was you can listen to, I believe that's 134 or 135 with Drago, and then actually episode number 2, and that I brought him back on, and after almost a year now of talking about what could be, and it washed over me, and I realized that everything we've been talking about up to this point is now. It's happened. We are facing a real crisis in this country, greater than any national security crisis we've ever faced before. In fact, it's such a crisis that I believe, and I talked to several people about this over the weekend, that I really, to tell you the truth, if this president, before he left, if he declared martial law just long enough to get a hold of what's going on, even if he did this and then stepped down, to get a hold of what's happening with the voting. Because folks, listen, I said this actually to a bunch of people several times this weekend, right? And it was very poignant when I was talking to one particular person where they said, well, we live in a democracy. And I said, well, actually we live in a republic. And they said, well, it's democratic. We can vote. I said, is it? And they were like, yeah. I said, well, I want you to think about something. In your lifetime, who have you voted for? And they're like, well, I voted for several people. I was talking about for president. I said, I voted, for this person. I said, hold on a second. Who are those people? Who told you to vote for those people? So well, nobody told me to vote for them. I said, listen, who told you that was a candidate and that was a candidate? And she said, oh, the Democrat and Republican parties. I said, exactly. For years and years and years and years, you have not, it's not exactly a Democratic nomination of these people. We are a republic. But the problem is, over the 240 something years that this country's been around, we have morphed into a two-party system. And we really are the party. I mean, it's not for the people, by the people. And I said this back in 1995 when I sat on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial after spending a day in the RNC and a day in the DNC and then a week in the White House. I've talked about this before. And I sat on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial confused. And one of the guys that was on the trip, is our senior trip in college, and we got to spend a week answering phones in the White House. And he's like, well, what's going on? What do you look down? And I said, listen, this is not a country for the people, by the people. This is a country for the Republican Party and for the Democrat Party. And I knew it back then, but I didn't, again, it hadn't washed over me. I remember being in the FBI and working and assisting organized crime cases, criminal enterprises, and thinking to myself, man, this is just like politics. They have the same characteristics as the political parties. And so, when I had this realization this past week, and when I was talking about with this individual about the reality of voting, everybody that was in the room, and it was a group of individuals that were in this room, everybody just kind of stopped. And they were like, wow, never really thought about it that way. But we really are, the Democratic process goes about as far as two candidates that two parties tell you that's it. You don't have another choice beyond that. And in fact, I've seen this in New Jersey. I've seen it in New York. I've seen it in Illinois. I've seen it tons of places. Wherever the Republican Party and the Democrat Party exists, especially the Republican Party, is really bad. Well, actually, you saw it in the Democrat Party during the Hillary Clinton era when she was running in 2016. But it's really who the party decides. And by the party, I mean very few individuals at the very top of the political spectrum. And along the way, to get to the top, there's certain people that are in the funnel of power at the state level, and sometimes even at the city level. And they can hamstring anybody else that is actually fully qualified. I have seen people fully qualified for the job. Scott Ulinger comes up in my mind in Pennsylvania's 9th district. Scott Ulinger, a graduate of the Maritime Academy. He's been on this show before. Graduate of the Maritime Academy. Was a naval officer, then driving huge ship tankers. Then he went into the CIA and was a CIA operations officer and chief of station in Moldova, I think is where he was. This guy is one of the most well-read individuals I have ever met in my life. Yet, the Republican Party establishment, when he ran for Congress, they didn't pick him. They picked some guy who has zero qualifications, except for the fact that he's an attorney, and he had been a state rep, I believe. He's something in the state. But listen, just because you've been a state politician doesn't mean that you're qualified for the job. In fact, you probably got that job because of who you were or who you are. I've seen the same thing here in New York. And so when I said this in this room, and everybody kind of sat back, and it was just coming out of me. I didn't it wasn't like, I was just, knowledge was coming out of my head, right? It wasn't like I was trying to debate anybody or anything. it was coming out of my mouth at the same time I'm thinking it. And everybody else is like, holy cow, we've been fooled into thinking that this is a democracy, that the Republican and the Democrat parties are out there looking for the best. It's not the case. Not the case at all. In fact, it's quite the contrary normally, that it's not the best. It is the people who they know are going to handle their power and keep the establishment going. Or in the case of the left, it's the ideology going. And the fast-moving sprint of communism, no longer the creep of communism. So that was the first thing. That happened, I went and listened to my own show again on Friday because it almost felt like a dream when I was making it. Probably was because it was like 4 o'clock. And the same thing now. It's 4:17 a.m. Monday morning. And so Saturday when I got up and I went down to I don't like to say speeches anymore, to give a lesson plan with the Long Island Loud Majority and the great group of individuals there that are, they can muster some amazing numbers for these car parades, and they do some great work. There's the Setauket Patriots as well, Joe the Box and his warehouse, and I'll get to that in a minute, and how and I'm going to have him on this podcast. But I went down there to go speak, and they had a few other people there that were speaking, and so I was kind of in a daze when I got there because I woke up with this thought in my head after having recorded the show Friday morning and then listened to the show back again Friday afternoon. And so I wake up Saturday and I'm in this daze and I'm like, man, there is no hope for a political outcome in any of this. Even if the truth comes out and the president's able to override this rigged election process that's happened. It just doesn't matter, and we cannot trust the political parties. We don't have a choice. There in 4 years, even if this president wins, and then I can't believe I'm still saying that in December, but if he wins and he has 4 more years, it's really not going to matter. Communism is here, especially if we lose the Senate. It's going to be ridiculous. And if Joe Biden pulls this stolen election off, it's going to be, it's going to start happening immediately. Not in 4 years, but either way, it's here. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. The silver lining is that we, the people, we could always make it stop in an instant. I mean, 70 million people, over 70 million people voted for President Trump. The highest number of people voted in the history of elections in this country for one individual. So when I got there Saturday morning, and I was just in this daze, I knew that I wanted to talk about, as I had before over the past couple of weeks, couple of months really, actually longer than that, about 6 months, talking to people about what they should do. That's why I don't like to call it a speech anymore. It's a lesson plan. And I sit down or stand up and talk to hundreds or sometimes thousands of people and sometimes 5 or 10 and talk to them about the reality of where we're at and what has to be done in order to keep us from going any further and how people can start preparing themselves and meeting. And so I get ready to go up on stage. And it's interesting. You can just feel evil when it's in the room. I just felt uneasy, not because of the people that were putting it on, not because of the crowd that was there. You could just feel it. I just felt like there was some negativity in the air. And so, by the way, that morning I was on Newsmax, which I love Newsmax. I've been working around Newsmax for going on 7 years, doing different analysis on the show. Never been, actually I've been paid by Newsmax. When I hosted for John Cardillo, I would get paid for that. But my analysis was never paid for. So I even had this show on there for 2 weeks once. They tried it out. guess it wasn't for them. So, it was interesting. I get there and Newsmax was there. I just was on Newsmax. I come there and I was excited to see some people from Newsmax. I didn't know the producer or the guy that was there that was doing the report. But there was a makeup artist there that I recognized and never had a beef with her before. She used to be at Fox News. And then there was another individual there that I'm not going to say who it was, because I don't want to press these people and push and point who they are out, because they know who they are. And the reality is it's not going to do any good to point out who they are or what they, I will point out what they did, but it doesn't do any good to point out who they are, because the point is what they were doing and when they were doing it. So you have this one individual who's very loud, loves to curse like crazy and come up and give these raw speeches. And I guess that's great for some people. It's not great for me. And so she did her thing, and it wowed the crowd. And, they get all excited because it's raw. It's like Andrew Dice Clay, if he was a woman. That's what it's basically like. So the majority of these people that go up on stage or they go on TV or radio and they say that we are fighting back, right? That's a catchphrase, that type of catchphrase. We are fighting back. Almost all the time, those people that say those things a lot, and that's their message, F you, Cuomo, or whatever, and we're fighting back. They don't do anything. They don't do anything. They go and they rally the crowd up. They sell T-shirts or merch. They make money. People donate money. And that's it. They don't do anything. They don't teach anybody any lessons because they really don't know anything. They've never done anything. And so, it is what it is. Those people are about the majority of people that you see that get up on stage, especially this day and age when grifting is it's all about grifting. They don't know anything. They don't do anything. They don't teach any lessons. They just get people rallied up. And it's exactly like in, I think it was Billy Madison where he went, was it Billy Madison or Happy Gilmore? Happy Gilmore, where he goes back to school, and Adam Sandler, and he gives the speech about the little puppy that could. I think that's what it was called. And at the end of the speech, it's just a rambling speech. And then at the end of the speech, he says, because it was Nib High School, he says, Nib High School rules, and everybody started clapping and going crazy. But he didn't say anything in his speech that was worth anything. He got loud at the end, and he said a catchphrase, and everybody screamed and hollered. And then the principal says something like, at no point during your rambling answer did you make any sense whatsoever, and may God have mercy on our soul. That's typically the way it is for the majority of these people. When you sit back and you see what they're doing, they are just talking. They're not organizing anything. They just go place to place and they say a whole lot of nothing really loud, and it gets people riled up, and nothing comes of it. And this has been going on for 4 years. It's really been going on since March, So, and again, they use things like, Killer Cuomo and things like that, and yet they don't give any money that they make. They don't give any of that money to the charities that are actually doing work, like Voices for Seniors, for instance. I sat with them on Saturday, and I've never seen this many women. It was like an assembly line. It was unbelievable, putting together presents all day long into the evening for these elderly patients that are in these clinics that are not able. Some of them haven't seen their families in 9 months. They're doing this to give them a lift. All this stuff is donated. All these women came together, and it was like something out of a movie. It was amazing. And what they're doing, they put their heart and soul into that. They spend their own money, take their own time, and they dedicate themselves to that and fighting Cuomo. They have pressed Cuomo so hard and his weirdo staff that he actually does respond to them and I think is a little concerned about the pressure that they have put on him. These other grifters, they don't do anything with their money. They don't put their money towards any of this stuff. They are making money. So I go up to speak, and this individual is recording the whole thing on Facebook Live, because that's what they do. You know, everybody does that. They record their stuff on Facebook Live. And when it was my turn to get up there, because I'm not yelling and screaming, I'm giving a lesson plan. And I get up there and I'm talking about the reality of everything that I figured out last week that hit me and washed over me. And I came up there and probably was in a little bit of a daze because of that. And as I gave this speech, this lesson plan to the people that were there, I find out later, because somebody sends me the video from Facebook. They send me the link to the Facebook Live broadcast, and these two knuckleheads, the one from Newsmax, the makeup artist, and this social media person, they're talking shit about me and talking shit about the message and the fact that because the sound was bad, their Facebook Live the numbers weren't up there. And then talking about how, you know, I was no good and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, the whole time I'm talking about that, I don't really care. I don't care if they like it or not. But the entire time they are talking about what they don't like and about their Facebook, and they're standing in the crowd, right? The entire time they're talking out loud, it's being recorded on Facebook Live, and they're trying to whisper so nobody hears it. But what they're talking about, this crap, is at a time when I'm discussing a Navy SEAL candidate who was at BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, in 1998 when I was there. I was in third phase. This young man, 25 years old, Gordon Racine, was in second phase, the very beginning of second phase, which is the dive phase. And he went down. They were doing a beehive. That's where they take in the pool. Our pool goes from like 3 feet down to 9 feet down to 15 feet deep. And they got windows down in the side, and this whole walkway down underneath where the instructors can walk. And they got, you know, safety swimmers all in the water. Gordon was doing this thing called the beehive, where they take the whole class, they make them fill their goggles up with water, which if you've never done that before, it's disorienting. And then they beat them for a while. They make them do push-ups and jump in the pool and out of the pool and do all these different things, all the while that their mask is filled with water, which if you're claustrophobic or have fear of the water, that'll freak you out. So then they have the whole class jump in the deep end, and everybody has to get really close together, which now you can't see. You're in the water and you're close together, which makes you feel like I'm not going to be able to escape this if something goes bad. And the reality is, if you calm down and focus on what you can see out of your mask and focus on the fact that you're fully capable of swimming, if you go down, it doesn't really matter. You can go down, take your mask off, and swim out of there if it's an emergency. But everybody, a lot of people get very, very nervous. Well, so the people that are on the inside of this beehive are the ones that are the most packed in there. And they have to swim down all the way to get past people's feet and then swim all the way to the outside, and it kind of gives them a little bit of a break, and then they come back in, and that's a perpetual motion. It kind of looks like one of those Outback Steakhouse bloomin' onions, except it's in the water. So Gordon Racine, 25 years old, giving it all for his country, goes down, gets kicked in the mask. His mask comes off. He sucks in water, and he drowns. Gordon Racine, 25 years old, died. And the point I was trying to make, while these two knuckleheads are having their little discussion and distracting people and being disrespectful for a fellow patriot who's not out there making any money. I didn't make a dime this weekend from the different talks that I gave. I'm talking about Gordon Racine, who gave his life for this nation. And I'm talking to people who, despite the rain and cold, got up and came out there because they wanted to learn something, because they wanted to show that they're willing to stand up and step out even when it's bad outside. So what hit me and washed over me on Friday, I show up to this speech on Saturday, and this occurs. And I felt it while I was there. I felt it while I was on stage. I could feel it. I knew something was afoot inside that place. And when I got off the stage, I left. I usually hang out and meet people and greet people, but I left. Then I didn't know about it at that point. I didn't know that this had occurred. So then I get that night, Saturday night. I had to be up early Sunday morning, but that night I get the link to this somebody sent me, and I watch it, and I thoroughly, I'm going to be honest with you, and it's why I'm talking about it today. I wouldn't be talking about it if it was just me on a personal level, and somebody said, "Oh gosh, you got to hear what these people are saying." But the reason why I was there, the reason that this person was there, the other person, the one that's talking on Facebook Live, the reason that they were there, the reason I was there, the reason all those people were there is because of what washed over me on Friday. The fact that we are in a world of trouble, that this world is in trouble, because when the United States falls, the rest of the world's going to fall. And it's no longer the creep of communism or socialism or globalism. It is here. And I was thoroughly disgusted and really, really let down by these two individuals. So I tried to wash that out of my brain and think, well, the other people showed up. They showed up and they wanted to learn. And actually throughout that day, after I gave that lesson plan and didn't know that this stuff had occurred, I actually had several people reach out to me and tell me thank you, because they had been there and they've been waiting for somebody to give some guidance, to actually tell them, because listen, it's not, if somebody got sick in my family, I wouldn't expect, it's not like I would go and read, which people make this mistake all the time. They go online, they read all this stuff, and then they try to self-diagnose or diagnose, or this is best for you. I want a doctor's opinion. And a lot of people look towards me because of my training and experience. They look to me for guidance. And I'm proud to give that guidance. I'm proud to be a part of leading the American people, hopefully, into a coordinated, unified citizenry. So when I listen to all this stuff, it bothered me. It bothered me a lot. So I go to sleep. I get up the next morning, still bothered. I mean, the negative energy, once that type of energy gets in you, it's hard to get rid of it. And so I go and speak. I was supposed to speak at two places today. The second one, which was in Manhattan, and I'm sorry that I didn't make it there for the guys and the men and women that got there. I wasn't able to make it because we go to Brooklyn, which, listen, I'm glad it was there. I got a good video out of it, and a good video that people can watch with a good lesson in it. I go there, was up on stage for about 10 minutes, and I was talking about the same thing. Same thing about how we need to come together, about the reality. This is what's so ironic about this, about the reality of the Republican and Democrat parties and how they just simply don't do anything to fix anything. They never have. They never come up with effective solutions. It's not like this country is just screaming by and doing fantastic all the time. Even before COVID, if it wasn't for the president, we would have never had a president in recent history. Well, really, probably in history, with the exception of a few, Abraham Lincoln, of course, George Washington. There was a few others that really were effective at growing the country, ensuring the freedom, making sure that equal rights and all these things. There's very few presidents. This president was probably the best as far as that goes because he's not a politician. When he said, hey, this is broken, this is how we're going to fix it, he did that, except for when the Democrats threw monkey wrenches in all this stuff. So that's what I'm talking about. I wasn't up there talking about, the Democrats are bad and only Democrats and only liberal. I was up there talking about the reality of socialism, the reality of politics, and how the power is in the people. So at this point, again, Friday I had this whole realization wash over me. Saturday I go give that speech. I was filled with negative energy from these two individuals that were there. And then I get home and then I get sent this link to the video and I can hear them talking shit while I'm talking about a guy who gave his life for freedom. I get up the next morning. I'm totally still disgusted by this whole thing. I go to Brooklyn, the heart of evil in New York City, where Antifa is just ripe, and the biggest clown puppets I've ever seen. They all look and dress exactly the same. Yuppies here and thugs over there, and everybody acts, and you can predict every single one of them. You just sit back and look at them. Oh, that person is obviously, some white, young female or male that has moved to Brooklyn because they think it's, they've got an electric car, they got a bicycle they ride everywhere, and they love Cuomo, and it's crazy. They think Trump is bad, and he's killed all these people, and they totally ignore all the reality that's out there. And then they dress, look, act exactly the same, believe the same thing. They don't skew from that at all. Then you have the Black Lives Matter people all showing up like they're militant, like they're going to do something. They're going to change the world. For what? Nothing that they push is going to make anything better. They just simply push everybody is bad, and nobody in the inner city that has dark skin is bad whatsoever. It's all oppression. Ridiculous. So as I'm up there trying to educate these people. There was probably 100 people there maybe, but which was a lot for being right there in the belly of the beast. And the reception was great from them. And while I'm talking, this video is on social media. While I'm talking, some jackass, you can see him milling about out there, takes a bottle. It had, I'm pretty sure because you could smell it, was vinegar and piss. And I don't know what else. And he shakes it up. It's in like a water bottle. And he sprays it all over me, all over the vehicle, and then throws it at me and hits a speaker, and it goes all over the crowd. And then it was, he's such a wimp that he gets on his bicycle and he rides away like David Hogg, like he's a little, like Pee Wee Herman. And you can see that in the video. And I was actually, to believe it or not, that was actually a highlight, because at that point I knew I got it on video, and I knew it would be a great lesson for everybody. When I keep saying that you're on the front line, if you believe in freedom and you're a patriot, you're on the front line. Americans in the Constitution, we're on the front line. And so this whole thing came to fruition. I got out of there as fast as I could, because I knew what was going to occur. And sure enough, after I left, the reports were that they showed up in full force. There was even one young woman, amazing, was wanting to tell her story, and they accosted her. They do everything they can except for touch people, except for me when they threw the bottle at me. So the first thing when I got up there and spoke was I thanked the NYPD, because I saw the NYPD was right there. But what I didn't realize is that they were sitting on their asses doing nothing. The same thing I saw when I saw the state police up at the state capitol. I don't know what these cops think the Constitution says about the First Amendment. They obviously have not read the First Amendment. because it doesn't say that you have free speech and anybody who wants to come up there and assault you is welcome to do that as long as they're counter-protesting. That is not the First Amendment. If people come out and they're wanting to voice their opinion, they should be protected from assault. But that's not what cops do these days. And I know, listen, I know people are going to say, well, that's, it's their precinct commander or it's, politicians that are doing this and they put the pressure on them. Listen, bullshit. Don't get in the job if you don't want to protect people. There was no perimeter around anybody. They sat on their fat asses over there doing nothing. And there was at least probably 15 of them doing nothing. And look, whatever. I got some piss and vinegar thrown on me. Whatever. What if that had been fire? What if that had been a Molotov cocktail? There was nothing, no protection whatsoever of these people coming out there and voicing their opinion about a murdering dictator named Cuomo and de Blasio and Fauci. I've never really talked about Fauci before, but I'm sorry I keep cursing on this show, but we've gone into this depravity. I really don't care anymore. And I don't curse that much, but Fauci is a bullshit artist. He's a liar. That guy, look, I know the virus is real. I had it. But Fauci is a liar. He's a con artist. He's just like Bill Barr. These people make themselves look to be smarter and more perfect than they ever are. And they really, like all the politicians, they don't change anything. So these people are voicing their opinions. They have the right to do that. They're in a public place. And law enforcement shows up and just sits there. And I was very disgusted by that. I was just as disgusted by that as I was by those two knuckleheads on Saturday morning. So the whole conclusion, I get done, I come home, and I had to take a nap. To tell you the truth, I had to lay down because the whole process of this weekend was so overwhelming. And it was such a huge lesson that I had to stop. That's why I'm just now doing the podcast. Now it's 4:47 in the morning and a Monday morning. And I just took a little nap and just sat there all day thinking about what has occurred, going over the news and looking at the lies and I just have to tell you, I hate being the person that's giving, the Debbie Downer of podcasts, but the reality is we are in it's a bad situation. Not only, and listen, I talked to a lot of great people this weekend that are true patriots and are worried about this country. But the problem is, the people that are the loudest, like it's always been, are the ones who get listened to. Not the people who know the most, not the people who care the most. It's con artists. There's con artists everywhere. Con artists in politics, con artists in law enforcement, con artists that are like these supposed, influencers. I don't even know what that means. I guess you can say every curse word and every vulgar thing in the book, and then but you throw in there Trump 2020 MFer, or you throw in there Cuomo as a killer, and all of a sudden you're an influencer. Listen, a year ago, if you took Cuomo and the support of Trump out of it, you would be saying that is a trashy individual with a foul mouth that nobody is interested in hearing, and quite frankly, probably going to get locked up eventually for something. Now they're a hero. And there's nothing really coming out of it. And this is just one of many. So here we are Monday morning. And how do I go forward? And how do we as patriots, I can't even say it, patriots in this country. I sort of say people in this country, but the reality is you're not going to fix a lot of these people. You're not. Fox News, I saw a headline. They have a video. It was in Washington State where Antifa was trying to burn a flag. And listen, I get sent this stuff by people, and I want you to be smarter about this, okay? People send me videos, and the videos say, Antifa tries to burn flag. It doesn't go well for them. Listen, there wasn't a beatdown. It wasn't a beatdown. They got the flag back. The Patriots got the flag back. A couple people got smacked. Don't kid yourself, folks. Don't kid yourself. You're not seeing smackdowns. You're seeing people getting fights. You know who's gotten smacked down are people who are good people that like Trump, getting hit in the head with chains, getting hit in the head with frozen bottles of water, people getting severe injuries, killed in a couple locations. You're not seeing that. You're not giving any Antifa people a smackdown. That hasn't happened yet. So when you send me these videos, and I love you and I thank you for sending me stuff, but don't kid yourself into thinking that that's a smackdown. We're not winning that, okay? That yes, they rescued the flag. That's great. But you have to start being realistic. You have to start being realistic and realizing that this is a game that's being played with you, a social media game. These influencers, it's crap. This guy, Ollie, which I keep talking about over and over again, he goes on and it gives the perfect example of a grifter. Goes on and asks for donations, and then in a couple tweets later says, I would never ask you for anything. I'm working for you. First of all, who is this guy? Who's propping this dude up? It's a whole game. It's an illusion with all these people. So I've come to a conclusion. Okay, I will give lesson plans. I will meet up with people where they want to try to figure stuff out. I will, which I plan on doing down in DC. They're going to have this big thing, and I railed on people. Don't get involved with this. Stop the steal. Don't go down and get involved with this stuff. But everybody's going to have another march on Washington, D.C. on it's the 12th or 13th. So I got invited. I'm going to go down, and I'm going to give a lesson plan. And I'm not going to get involved with this stuff anymore. I'm not going to get involved. I will still give my lesson plans. I will do these things, but I'm not going to associate myself with these people, with these grifters at these events. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm sure a lot of them are getting paid. They show up there. They're going to talk about themselves. They're going to talk about the state of affairs in the nation. None of them have the experience. If they start giving plans, I can guarantee you they heard it from me or one of the other few people that have this experience. So if you hear somebody like Ollie or any of these other social media influencers or grifters and they start trying to tell you what we need to do in this country, chances are they don't know jack squat about tactics. They don't understand the reality of what's happening. They couldn't outflank the enemy if it was the last thing they had to do on earth in order to eat. They wouldn't know what to do. And that's what it's coming down to. So I'm going to go down there. I'm going to give a lesson plan, and hopefully people will listen to it. Listen, the bigger crowd I can get to give these lesson plans and organizing. What's a lesson plan? I'll tell you what the lesson plan is. Are you organized? Or do you think you're going to fight yourself? Are you going to go out and buy 50 guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition and you're the only one in your house, or you got two other siblings or a wife or a husband and you don't have all this stuff is boxed. You don't have any way to move it. You see how stupid that is? You buy 3 different guns and you have 3 different people in your house. You buy 3 different kinds of ammunition. What in the world are you going to do if something goes really bad? You're going to, if this person runs out of ammo, they're done. Now they got a club because you got 3 different kinds of guns, 3 different kinds of ammunition. You got to have a plan. You got to understand that most likely a firefight's never going to happen in your home. You're just going to be oppressed. Because trust me, if a SWAT team comes to your house, the brown shirts, what your police are starting to become, and they come to your house, or if Antifa's in your neighborhood, are you going to light them up? You going to go after and take them all out? I don't think so. You're not going to do that by yourself. You're going to go to jail, or you're going to die in the process because the cops will show up and they'll take you out. Now, if 1,000 people stood together, there's no cops are going to come after you. They'd have to call it would come to, there'd have to be a resolution. Look at Virginia. It's a perfect example. 20,000 armed civilians show up to the Capitol in Richmond, Virginia last year to protest what their governor, I forgot his last name, weirdo, doesn't matter, he's just as weird as the rest of them. I know the people from Virginia are screaming at me right now, but, they showed up in force and nobody did anything to them. You didn't see them they could have stayed there for a month and nobody would have done anything. Because when I say wouldn't have done anything, they could have gotten what they wanted. And this, to some extent, they did. But it wasn't like law enforcement was going to go toe-to-toe with 20,000 armed civilians. Are you kidding me? It's not going to happen. And they would have to come to a resolution. So this is the lesson plan. You have to become organized. If you have groups and you meet up, don't just meet up and air grievances. This isn't Festivus. You don't just show up and tell people, oh, I feel bad and I don't like what Cuomo's doing or I don't like what the president's. Show up. Find out who lives close to you. Start coming up with a plan. And then in the cases like Georgia, where they're having, all this, there's voter fraud everywhere, but Georgia, Pennsylvania. Do you realize if all the conservative voters in Georgia showed up, surrounded the Capitol, and when they're all there, or whatever they got to do, and said, just like in Virginia, and they said, this is going to get bad really fast. Imagine if all the voters, that'd be 1 million voters, or I don't know how many conservatives they had vote in Georgia, but I'm sure it's over 1 million. And they showed up, I would hope it's over 1 million, and they show up and demand a revote by paper that's counted by hand in front of all the people, and they would sit there in shifts and watch these people count, put them in the center of a stadium, and let all the people take turns sitting in the stadium seats with binoculars, whatever it takes, so that they can see it. Can you imagine if 50,000 civilians with guns showed up and demanded that in Georgia? What is law enforcement going to do? Are they going to call it the National Guard and go toe-to-toe and kill 50,000 people? No. They're not. The people can demand what they want if enough of them are standing together. You're not going to get what you want by people who are in the fight and they don't do anything except go around, speak, sell T-shirts, and grift off everybody. You are the ones together that are going to make a difference. And I'm not going to lie to you. The few people that show up, the hundreds or maybe 1,000 here or 2,000 there or 50 people, if everybody emulated them and showed up, we would start having change. We would start stopping what's happening. But people, instead, they want to show up they want to give money to stop the steal, right? Guess what? Listen, let me get this mic, make sure it's clear. The steal already happened. You're not going to stop anything. It's already occurred. What you can do is get the power together and go insist that it's done again, that there's another vote, that all votes in this country stop and we redo it, except we redo it on paper and we redo it with pure transparency. Oh, there's no way we can do that. Yes, there is. If enough people got together. And if you're liberal and you're listening to this and you think this game isn't going to be played on you, go back and look at 2016. It was played on you then. We wanted Hillary. There was a bunch of people. We want Bernie Sanders. The Democrat Party said, nope, you're going to have Hillary Clinton. Now, I'm glad it worked out the way it did because both of them are crap, and Bernie Sanders is a socialist. Hillary Clinton is too. She just packages it in a different eggshell. But it was rigged. You could clearly see that, but you all are so stupid and you're being puppeteered to the nth degree that you don't even stop to realize it's happening to you. At least the conservatives in this country realize that the GOP is worthless. The Democrats they think that DNC is awesome. How could you ever think Debbie Wasserman Schultz is awesome? Crazy. Absolutely crazy. You know, when this type of stuff happens, and all these things happen in succession this weekend, and I had to I had to pause today and sit back and look at this. I can't tell sometimes where the Lord is leading me and where he's leading us and how this message is going to get out to you, if it's going to sound like I'm rambling and whining because there's some, loud mouths at some place. That wasn't it. The totality, I always talk about the totality of the circumstances. The totality of this weekend was such that by the end of the weekend, it had confirmed what I felt on Friday, on Thursday. By the end of the weekend, I sat back and realized that I do play a part, that even, to tell you the truth, these people who I've been ragging on, the social media influencers, the one thing that they do right is they do encourage and motivate people to get up and to get out. And so this is what I learned by the end of this, by the end of all this stuff. If those knuckleheads from Saturday, if the weirdos who are throwing piss and vinegar out there, the social media grifters, if everybody just stopped and realized that we have a constitution that gives us freedom and that constitution is being manipulated and stolen so that we can be oppressed, if people just realize that, well, there'd be a huge change. But and speaking now directly to the conservatives, if all these people that are grifting and that are influencers, I hate that word, and people who have real experiences all got together and said, what's our piece of the puzzle? Which is what I was talking about Saturday. What are you good at? Are you a mom? Guess what? If you're a mom, you're good at small unit organization. That's what you're good at, right? If you're a social media influencer and you're good at getting people to come out, then why won't you stop, work with people who have real experience, and let's craft the message. Let's craft the warning order. Let's craft a lesson plan. Let's get people out there. Let's get people educated and united with a purpose. And look, if you want to make some money in the process because that's how you feed your family and you spend all your time traveling, to do these speeches, I don't have a problem if people who really should be protecting your money right now, but if they want to give their money out and support you, I really don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is the people who collect money. They don't give any of it back to the charities in which they are basically milking from. People that are giving money to these people are saying, Cuomo killer, F Cuomo, and they're giving all their money to that individual. They could be giving their money to groups like Voices for Seniors to support their efforts to help these elderly people and put pressure on Cuomo because they're a mass group of people. And these are people that, they do all this work on their own. They're not up there, in front of people getting applause. And so these are women that are mostly women, which I don't understand that either. Where are all the men in this? That's probably what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. Where are all the men? So I have to pause. I have to pause every now and then when I'm talking. When I ask questions like that, it's a scary question to ask. But anyway, so if all these people, this is what I got by the end of this weekend, is that if all these people that are trying to make a buck and get popular, and then the people who are trying to actually get a message out, unify people, and actually get people prepared or organize them so that they can put their power and their force forward to stop what's happening. If all these people got together and actually worked towards a common strategic plan, we could change everything. But quite frankly, as I said last week, I don't see that happening. And that's a scary truth. But I think it's important for everybody to realize, no matter how scary of a time that it is, no matter how quickly this hurricane of socialism is coming upon this country, no matter how much we dislike each other, no matter how much you think that that person is useless or that person is irrelevant, if you sit back and look at yourself and look at the people that you associate with, you have meaning, you have purpose, and probably you're really good at one thing. That's an expertise that can be used. And if we all work together, we could stop the tide of socialism. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace. I'm out of here.